Monday to Friday from 4 to 5:30 p.m. on your super dial. Mainland 98.3 FM will welcome you roommates as we discuss the situations.
Good evening and welcome to another episode of the Situation Room on Mainland 98.3 FM, your go-to platform for incisive discussions and real-time analysis of present issues as they shape our communities. My name is Sage Babalola. Every Monday through to Friday from 4 p.m. all the way to 5:30 p.m. we have a convergence of brilliant minds who address national, sometimes even international issues. It is the Situation Room for a reason. If it is happening, we are most certainly talking about it. And it's always better to hear from experts when we bring subject matters to the table, which is why we do the best we can to employ the services of the most qualified individuals to act or serve as analysts on the Situation Room. It's 90 minutes of conversations, and these conversations oftentimes, if not all the time, involves you, our beautiful listener. We dedicate at least 30 minutes of the 90 minutes to hearing you talk about the matters that have been discussed and the matters that have been analyzed. And a lot of things have indeed been happening in Nigeria the last couple weeks, if not even the last couple months. But we try to talk about the most recent events and talk about the factors that have come to play. And most significantly, if it is a problem, how to solve the problem. If it happens to be a solution, we talk about how we can sustain that solution. Well, as I said, real-time analysis of present issues is exactly what you're going to get on today's episode, as every other episode of the Situation Room on Mainland 98.3 FM. And today we are going to be having two sessions because we have two primary issues that continue to make headline across all of our newspapers. Even this morning during Trends in the Papers, one of these stories was actually our focus for the day. The flood incidents in Nigeria. It's a very pressing, devastating crisis that is facing our nation at this time. The overwhelming flood incidences that have wreaked havoc across various states. And one of the states that is not having a great time at this moment is Niger State. Death toll continues to climb. Families have been separated. Thousands have been displaced. Farmlands have been submerged. And there are individuals who do not know what the future has in store for them because of this flooding incident. And it's more alarming because this is something of an annual occurrence. Every year, farmlands are washed away, houses are submerged, entire local governments is flooded that we can very much control if only we were proactive. And as a nation, we are no strangers to the activities of nature. It rains every year, and we do have an agency that focuses primarily on giving weather reports so that we're not caught unawares. We're not surprised when these rains come. Yes, because of global warming, we've seen a disruption, and what the scheduling, the weather schedule has been like. The rains are coming a little bit late, for example. You not expect that the rains are still this heavy at this time, but it is what it is, and that is the situation. But the recent flood sort of serves as a stark reminder of our vulnerability to environmental degradation. Even urban Lagos here to the rural landscapes of Niger. Let me use that as the example in this case. Countless lives have been disrupted, properties have been destroyed, entire communities have been submerged. And that's why today we're going to bring you in-depth coverage of the idea of the casualties and the response that have followed these alarming casualty figures, especially surrounding the flood incidences. There are tragic stories to be told, livelihoods being washed away, businesses have been submerged, and I have personally read the tales of survivors, who are shedding light on the very harrowing experience that they've had or faced in the hands of nature, which is if you do not cater to nature, you will feel nature's wrath. And I think that's what is happening in some parts of the country. And it's not just about recounting the losses. That's not what we want to do on the program today. We will also focus on emergency responses, how government agencies like NEMA, for example, and local agencies can rally around to assist affected communities. What are the strategies being implemented to provide relief? Are they effective, the strategies that have been put in place before, the effectiveness of the strategies? What are the challenges that even the responders face? Commitment that will take a few minutes of our usual timing, but that's okay. I'll be here to keep you company until my guest is ready to come on board. Yes, and I just want to give you a rundown of what you can expect from this first session of the conversation. My guest will join me, provide insight into the systemic issues that have led to this catastrophic event. We will discuss long-term solutions to mitigate future disasters like this one. And as I said earlier, when I started the program, we want to hear from you. And we invite you to share your thoughts, to share your experiences related to the flood. I want you to call in or reach out via our social media platform, which reminds me, we are streaming the program live on Facebook and on YouTube. We do the best we can to stream most of our programs so that you don't miss out on anyone, regardless of whether or not you're able to listen live. So you can reach us when we finally start taking engagement. This is a critical conversation, and I'm attempting to connect with my guest so that we can just get straight into the conversation. And whilst I do that, I should let you know that that conversation will last for the first 30 minutes of the 90 minutes. And then after that, we're going to take a short break and bring on our second guest for this evening, who will join us to talk about the recent statements or not so recent statements that have been made regarding the possibility of saboteurs within government, which has somehow fueled the brazenness of these terrorists, of these bandits, of these marauders, whatever you want to call them, in our polity. Saboteurs within government, propaganda or fact? We want to answer that question in the next, after this session, the next 30 minutes. That's what we're going to do for the next session. I believe I do have my guest now, my guest for the first session of this conversation, which is flood incidents in Nigeria, casualty and response. I do have Dr. Olucha Oscar, who is an environmentalist, he's a geographer, he's an associate professor, geography department in the University of Lagos, and he joins me now via the phone. Good evening, sir. Thank you so much for being here. How are you?
Hello, good evening, Sage. I'm fine, and you, how are you?
I'm great. You're trying to sound like thank you so much for being here. I know that you're very busy, and I really appreciate you taking time out to talk to us today.
Yeah, very much welcome.
Thank you. Yes, all right. So let me make the best of the time that you can afford us this evening. So let's talk about the flood disaster. This is an occurrence that has happened time and time again. I mean, Maiduguri, we have a Niger State, for example. We've had local governments that are still trying to recover even 3 years after. And for some reason, we've not been able to arrest this particular situation. Can you describe to me your thoughts about the historical trends of flooding in Nigeria? The fact that the matters seem to get worse even as we continue to get enough information, but for some reason, we continue to see
well, basically flooding is a natural phenomenon. Congenital factors that can lead to flooding, no doubt about it. And over the years, no doubt, we've been having a flooding incidences in the country. It's a yearly occurrence. Although, it seems to be more frequent now, and also the intensity is increasing, over the years. As a result of, like I said, the climate change and increasing human activity, So flooding is something that, over the years we've always had it in the country. It's not a new thing, but the intensity and then the spread is something that is really of much concern now, because we are experiencing more of it now than ever before, as a result of certain factors which maybe we'll be able to point out, some of those factors, in a short while.
Let's actually proceed to point out these factors, because you said that a lot of these things or some of the situations of flooding is usually man-made, or at least our activity sort of exacerbates the situation. So Nigeria in focus, so what are the factors, what are the things you think we are doing or we're not doing that has facilitated these incidences of extreme flooding that we've recorded?
Okay, looking at the Nigerian situation, you find out that in some cases, the flooding is as a result of, people building, across natural drainage channels, which those channels are supposed to, channel, storm water, properly to, where they will be received and all that. But then you find out that sometimes people will go and then build across such a natural drainage channels, blocking, the flow of water. And now we normally say that water will always find its level. So when the natural channel is blocked, definitely the water will find one way or the other, to move. And that is why you now find a situation whereby some areas that are, not really quite flood prone may become inundated, flooded, because the natural channel has been blocked. And also, sometimes you find out that, especially in, urban areas like Lagos, Port Harcourt and all that, as a result of increasing destruction of wetlands, wetlands that serve as a kind of natural sponge, to soak away excess water, overland flow of water, because these wetlands are being destroyed. You find out that, the buffer, the buffer that these wetlands normally provide has more or less been, removed. So you find out that water now flows freely, even to areas where they are not supposed to flow, And again, apart from the natural drainage channels that at times people destroy, even, the man-made channels like gutters and all that, sometimes they are blocked. People dump all kinds of refuse, solid waste into, those channels, drainage channels, the gutters and all that, thereby also blocking, those, drainage channels that are supposed to, direct storm water away. So those are some of the factors that actually cause it. Even, in the destruction of forest, land, vegetation, deforestation is also a major factor that leads to flooding in Nigeria today. So many places have been destroyed. The vegetation cover, has been destroyed. In fact, deforestation is a very intensive, should I call it, disaster here in the country. And, deforestation often leads to, flooding and all that. And of course, rainfall intensity is increasing. And when, the amount of rain that is falling, is not being properly channeled out, drained out, effectively, you find out that some areas that are not, that's supposed to be dry land or all that, will now be inundated, they'll be flooded. And these are some of the things that really cause, the flooding problems we are having now. Sometimes also, you find out that, the release of water from dams, and that is when that activity, that could equally, lead to flooding. So these are some of the factors. That's looking at the Nigerian situation. These are some of the factors we have thus far discovered.
To flooding, and the fact that we mostly only activate protocols when people have died. 200 people will die, 100 people will die, businesses will perish, and that is the only time that our emergency protocols are activated. All right, let's start to relocate people. People are in flood-prone area. We have NIMET, who gives us weather reports months before we start to see the manifestation of the rains. And one would expect that proactiveness is immediately employed, where you scan the area, you move people, you start to make provisions for where they're going to stay. You start to maybe create artificial channels to allow proper flow of water. What would you say about our emergency responders, our emergency protocol? And don't you think that this is another reason why the
in this country, we mostly take reactive, measures rather than proactive measures towards, the management of, flood. Most of the time, we wait until the onset of the flooding before we now begin to think of what to do. Whereas, when you talk about proper management, effective management, it requires taking, proactive measures. there are always what we call early warning systems. All right? And these early warning systems, are there. There are measures that you can take, proactive measures you can take, identify areas that are prone to flooding. In fact, some weeks back, NIMET, that's the Nigerian Meteorological Agency, came out with predictions as areas, countries, about almost 30 states of the country, that are likely to experience flooding. They have given us a kind of early warning. Now, it behoves the government, and also the people to take proactive measures, to start thinking of, how to go about maybe advising people to relocate, even before the onset of, any flood event. Because definitely, those predictions by NIMET, in fact, if not 100%, but at least to a large extent, often turns out to be accurate. So it's not as if we are not receiving the warning in time, but it's just that due to our approach to issues, we believe in this fire brigade approach, which has not really been helping us, especially when it comes to managing natural disasters or some other disasters like flood, taking measures, steps to relocate people, to safer areas, upland areas that are not prone to flood. But because sometimes we don't take things so serious, we would rather wait until the disaster comes before we start running helter-skelter to know what to do. That is why at times we find out that the casualty figures are usually so high. Now, you know that we already have an idea of areas that are actually prone to flooding. And you find out that people are always living around those areas. What stops government, even before the flood comes, from either advising those people or even taking measures? It's what we call government fiat. Through government fiat, government can order the relocation of people from certain areas as safe. You find out that you would have succeeded in reducing the casualty figures that could arise from any flood event. So that's part of the problem we are having, because we are not taking proactive measures. We rather wait to take reactive measures, which will be a little bit late by the time we now wake up and start thinking of what to do. Yeah.
Well, this is still the Situation Room on Mainland 98.3 FM. We're talking about disaster management, flood incidents in Nigeria, casualty and response. And I do have the privilege of talking to Dr. Olucha Oscar, who is an environmentalist, a geographer, and associate professor, Geography Department, University of Lagos. And we're talking about the flooding incidents, what the response have been like, the fact that we continue to record high casualty figures, what we've been able to do with the information that NIMET has provided to us, amongst other things. And now I want us to move to the part of the conversation that has to do with we as a people. I know that we've highlighted the inadequacies of government agencies, amongst other things, but what about we as a people? Now, we did see in the report, yes, that Commissioner Tokunbo Wahab, he had mentioned the possibility or the considerations for the return of environmental sanitation in Lagos. Now, aside from the fact that it would aid with cleanliness, he says it's also going to help us to deal with issues like this one, because a lot of times activities like improper dumping of refuse goes and clog the drainages, and then you see areas that are flooded. You see the outbreak of waterborne disease because of this stagnant water over a period of time. Do you think that actions like this one, and when I mean actions that are the refuse, plastic is what constitutes the bulk of that refuse. How do we disabuse the mind of people to let them know that that small action that they have perpetrated has the possibility of causing a statewide disaster?
Yeah, definitely. The activity carried out by, of course, we the city areas that we thought so we are not flooded. You find out that before you know it, they are being flooded. Especially if we take Lagos as an example. One, we must not forget that Lagos especially the southern part of Lagos, is, almost at sea level, if not, below sea level in some places. So because Lagos is, a coastal area, it's a littoral area. That is why it's always easy for, flooding to take place, because the land, especially in southern Lagos, Lagos Island and all that, the land is really relatively flat, right? It's only when you begin to move to places, upland areas like Ikorodu, Agege, and all that, that the land is a little bit, the relief is high. But southern Lagos, particularly Lagos Island, is more or less at sea level. So the activities we carry out, like you rightly pointed out, improper disposal of solid waste, all right, is a major problem. It helps to clog, or block the drainage channels, thereby preventing the water from flowing freely, And again, you find out that in Lagos, we don't have enough, storm collectors on the flooding pattern that we have been experiencing, or we have experienced over the years. That should have informed government to know where to now locate storm, collectors that we have to channel and then, in fact, collect the water, the flood waters, so that, it doesn't now begin to flood our roads or compounds, and we go and build on flood plains. Whoever gives them the approval to do that is what I don't know. It's only when, maybe there is flooding problem that you now see government agents running after them, trying to mark their buildings, to pull them down and things like that. Whereas they ought to have done all that, they will see people building across, drainage channels or flood prone areas. They will not stop them. But later on, they will go back, to start pulling down their buildings, which is just really a kind of medicine after death. Because before you take such measures, some people might have died as a result of, in fact, something that was preventable. So our activities, no doubt about it, contribute a lot. That's why we talk about the anthropogenic factors, that is the man-made or human factors. About that, when we're looking at if time we permit to look at possible solutions. But definitely there is need for us to change our pattern of doing things and our attitude towards the environment.
That's exactly what we're about to talk about now. I know that we have just less than 4 minutes to round off this particular session. Part of We the Citizens. How do we